All right. Wow. It's 1 minute to, so I guess we can already start. Um, First of all, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to come and sit and listen to me ramble on side mount diving and what we've been up to as an organization when it comes to side mount diving. So let's start with a little explanation on UTD. What is UTD and who are we? A little bit of the timeline, so you get an idea of what we've been up to since we've started. History of side mount and the reason for side mount diving. Advantages, disadvantages, where we are now, and then we'll round up with some questions. First, to start, get a little feel of the audience. How many of you guys are familiar with side mount diving? Everybody, exactly. How many of you dive side mount actively? Oh, good, a little bit, like 40%. Very nice. All right, so let's start off. What is UTD? Who is UTD? Well, UTD is a training organization with roots in a DIR philosophy. For those of you who aren't aware with DIR philosophy, it's a philosophy based or born in caves, basically back in the early 90s. And the way the concept was built is basically a group of divers getting together, wanting to accomplish certain goals within diving. And that created or molded a system of diving that was based around the needs for this group of divers. And that then later got translated into a training model. So it's very nice and very morally straightforward to teach the system because it's developed by divers for divers instead of us as an organization figuring out hey, we want to sell scuba classes. Let's design an open water class. And now an advanced open water class, and just go from there. When you look at our build-up of courses, it's basically built from the back end and forward. So we looked at what's the most complicated and demanding situation we can place a diver in. That can be in the back of a cave with a rebreather, a scooter, a camera, and a decompression obligation. That kind of adds a little bit of task loading to that diver. And that needs a lot of training and needs a lot of knowledge and a lot of equipment awareness. Now, if we slowly start peeling back that onion to the level where we are at an open water level, we end up with a diver with the same base as the other guy, but the opportunity to go there if that arises. Now, the advantage of doing it that way is that we create a base for a diver to grow from a solid base to the pinnacle. And usually what you see in a diver's diver's life of his evolving stature of his from this day he starts to the day he finishes, it's an upside down triangle. It's a limited knowledge base, a limited skill base, and it keeps on piling up. And eventually it becomes so top heavy that you kind of lose track, right? I mean, how many of you are divers at technical diver level? A little bit. How many times have you had to take a step back to take a step forward, right? Like new tables, new way of learning how to communicate with hand signals, new way of finning, a new completely new configuration of your equipment and all that sort of stuff. It makes you go one step back to go two steps forward. And when we designed our training philosophy, we just said, okay, how can we make it so that an open water diver can just enjoy the simplicity of open water diver with a single tank, but have the opportunity to go beyond that without reinventing himself. So that's basically what our roots lie in and what we find is one of our strongest selling points. We're a two-man operation from headquarters point of view. Jeff Seckendorf, CEO, and myself, Ben Boss, as the training director. And we've been, as we see in the next slide, kind of redoing the whole UTD training company since 2 years, completely redesigned the whole thing, but we'll come to that in a minute. The biggest focus for us is that we train the way we dive and we dive the way we train. And it kind of sounds like plan your dive and dive your plan, but it goes to the smallest detail. Like every dive we do, a training dive or a normal dive, is a normal dive. We usually say on our courses, and our instructors all over the world say on our courses, there's no such thing as a training dive, so to speak. Like all dives are real dives. So there's no protocol we use only in training. There's no situation where this is only applicable because it's a training dive. No. We see and look upon and treat every dive as a normal dive. That way we can train the way we dive and dive the way we train. We are extremely proud to be trend-setting time and time again. It's a tiny little part of the presentation to toot our own horn. I hope that's okay. But we've been training neutrally buoyant since day one. We started the organization, and it counts for all of our courses. None of our students are ever on the bottom, on their knees, on their bellies. They're not in contact with the bottom. Not an open water diver. First day in the pool, they're neutrally buoyant. And that's something that we now see permeating through the whole dive industry as the new thing. Well, we look at it, diving is a very motory-based exercise. It takes skill to be a good diver. Any one of you that have been diving more than a weekend knows that, right? It's like skiing, mountain biking, dancing. It takes practice to become proficient at it. And we take that practice and put it into the program from day one. And when that base is built, then we'll start adding the exercises. Because for us, it's kind of strange to put a new diver under the water with unfamiliar equipment in an unfamiliar environment. The brain is going completely nuts because it's the mammalian diving reflex that's still really much alive. And the first thing you'll ask them is, please fill your mask up with water or take your regulator out. And they're like, what's going on? And it creates a lot of like bad seeds that be planted in the diver. So we take the comfort first, and then we'll take those skills afterwards. We've been, again, since day one, 100% online teaching materials. This adds a benefit. Well, first of all, we don't have to print books, which is good for the environment. But also, when we update our materials, you as a student get updated materials all the time for free. Once you get it online, that's yours for the rest of your access. When we update something, it'll be updated in the system. And that's also something we now see being marketed out there. So we're kind of proud of that. Side mount and CCR integration into the DIR concept is something that was frowned upon by other community members in the DIR community. And now we see that's also popping up left, right, and center. And it's nice, but we've been doing that since day one, basically. And then, if you heard my colleague speak yesterday about the coaching, it's a brand new concept in training in diving, as far as we know, at least. We're taking the coaching concept to scuba training, removing that need for having training compacted into one weekend or one time-limited space, opening up for the opportunity for divers to take that training they need to reach a certain goal over a longer period if that's needed. And that can be tied to a certification, but it can also just be tied to a goal about being a better diver. How many of you are instructors? A lot of them. Fantastic. How many times have you had a student that goes through the program, gets the card, but either you think or they themselves already feel, I need a little bit more training. And then you kind of don't know what to do. Well, we can go out and do some training, but it's kind of an unstructured and loosey-goosey way of doing it. Now, with the coaching program, we've attempted and we've built out a system where it can be put into a more structured program. A bit like athletic training for athletes that follow a coached program up to a certain race they want to do. So a little timeline. Are you guys hearing me all right? Because I feel like this is going in and out. Yeah, right? Let's see if I put it over here. Is that better? No. Is this better? I'll just keep it in my hand, I guess. Yeah, right. So the timeline for UTD, in 2008 we were born, we were hatched, so to speak. Shortly after, the first side mount system was implemented by us. A little bit more about that. A little bit past 2010, UTD equipment was born, and UTD started manufacturing fins and wings and venturing in the whole equipment manufacturing way. 2016, we were involved in a big decompression testing profile in Italy, where we were heavily involved in testing certain ways of doing decompression and what effect that had on us as scuba diving, as recreational divers. Even though we're technical levels, we're all doing it for fun. So I'm going to call that recreational diving because it's our recreation. Even though we're going to 200 feet, it's still for recreation. And that was very interesting, and we've always been very open-minded to the changes of the physiology and the knowledge about that, because all in all, the diving is very young, right? I mean, the things we've been doing is a very small time frame when you look at how long we've had to develop other stuff that has to do with the physical body. So decompression theory for us, as we'll come to in a minute, is very important and a subject close to our hearts. So moving further, in 2019, UTD equipment and UTD scuba diving separated. We decided that both companies we had to split the focus too many times, that we decided we have to focus back to our core, which is education. And that's when Jeff and I decided to take the whole thing and rebuild it up. COVID hit, so at first we thought it was a blessing in disguise. It's like, oh great. The whole world is on pause. We have time to rebuild everything. So we set about building a whole new website, a whole new e-learning platform. The materials started from scratch, almost building all new materials up, and then we were ready to launch. Come on, COVID, go away. It didn't. We're still in this while you're sitting there with all your masks on. So we had time to do a revamp of UTD completely, and since that, even due to COVID, or even in spite of COVID, I must say, we've been growing like we've never grown before. So it's fantastic to see the dedication of our instructors worldwide that stayed and sticked with our program. In 2020, we released a new ratio Diigo. If you guys are familiar, ratio Diigo is a way of calculating decompression obligations on the fly, without the use of tables, without the use of computers, on a simple system based on the knowledge that's out there, but giving the diver the opportunity and the possibility and the knowledge to think about their own decompression without relying on a piece of software, and giving them a little bit of a peek behind the scenes, basically. And then in 2020, we also started with the coaching, which got finalized here in early 21. And today, we can finally look at our new UTD side mount configuration. So that was a little bit of a timeline with some pillars we've done along the way. So some of you were familiar with side mount diving. About 40% of you dive side mount. So you all know that the reasons for side mount are vast, right? I mean, it can be cave diving. I mean, it was born in a cave environment because people were diving caves and reaching points in these caves where they couldn't get in with back-mounted scuba because the holes were too tiny. So take the tanks off your back and put them on the side. Gives us more flexibility. So that's where it came from. But all of a sudden, it turned into the new black on the scuba industry. Everyone wanted to dive side mount because it was lighter, it was easier on the back, and all of a sudden, a lot of divers developed chronic shoulder injuries, like out of the blue. It's like, I cannot reach my valves, I need side mount. And if that's true or not, I don't know. I'm going to leave that in the middle. But it was the solution for a lot of divers to go that way. So the problem with that was there was a myriad of systems all of a sudden popping up with different configurations, left, right, and center. And we kind of went to the beginning of back-mounted doubles, where that was starting out with independent doubles, manifolded doubles, isolatable manifolded doubles, long hose, short hoses, all that sort of stuff. That's what we're seeing right now in the side mount way, that there are so many different ways of doing that. People dive with little bladders for hydration as BCs, have 2 short hoses clipped off. One is a necklace, one is not a necklace, one long hose, one short hose. There's a whole bunch of different ways of doing it, and it kind of appeals to the fact that the side mount community that started with side mount in the beginning were doing it from a point of view of exploration, right? They wanted to explore certain parts of a cave that were inaccessible with back-mounted equipment. So they valued the flexibility of having tanks on the side higher than, for example, the well thought out now and built out and procedurized back-mounted doubles with an isolatable manifold in the middle. They kind of gave up on that like team aspect of diving because they were doing it for themselves. And a lot of the side mount thinking was revolving about, now I can 100% solve my own problems because all my valves are in front of me. But as you might know, that the single biggest source of failure in a diver is the diver himself. So what we think as an organization is that all the equipment in the world cannot help you if your noggin is not with you. So regardless of the configuration, it's still, in our opinion, the team aspect that makes a dive safe and not so much an equipment configuration. So I think we haven't seen the end of the development of the side mount systems out there. It's still very much under development. What I can say for us as an organization is that we've always adhered to a very consistent training path. So regardless if we train recreational divers on a single tank, side mount diving on a single tank or twin tank, technical diving or rebreather diving, we want to have the same base set of equipment configuration so that the platform you choose to dive on doesn't require you to change your method of diving. So we still have a long hose donatable in all systems. We still have the same configuration that the right post in a twin set feeds the primary stuff, the long hose and our wing. The left side feeds our dry suit and our necklace or a backup regulator. So all that sort of stuff stays consistent and stays throughout every platform. That way, it's like a carpenter wanting to drill a hole when he's building a house. If it's a tiny little piece of wood like this, he can take the small drill. If it's a bigger piece, he can take the bigger drill, but it's still a drill with the same batteries, it's just a different bit. And that's the same approach we have in Scuba. So for us, it would be, again, the same concept, taking one step back and 2 steps forward. If we would have one system for recreational single tank, for example, an octopus and jacket, and then another system for side mount, and then yet another system for doubles back mount, and then a whole 4th system for rebreather diving. We wouldn't be consistent because it will be a different path every time. The way we've set it up is it is consistent. The motorist skills you learn as a recreational diver are something you can use for all other paths, regardless if you go there or not. So, as I said on the first slide of the timeline, the Z system was invented. We created the Z system because we needed a way of incorporating side mount diving within our philosophies. And because of the nature of the side mount, that it's 2 loose tanks hanging on our sides, we needed a way to still be able to feed the right side as if it was on a back-mounted doubles. So that was accomplished by using a manifolded system on the back of the diver that distributed the hoses in the same way that the back-mounted regulators do. So the right side of this manifold would feed the long hose and it would feed the wing. The left side would feed the necklace and the dry suit, and the gas would be put in by hoses connected with a quick connect, a QC quick connect that's been used in rebreather diving for years to feed the system. That was a system. It worked very well. It still works very well, but it had some disadvantages. The advantages were there was a compatible system with the UTD DIR philosophy. We would still be able to dive the long hose all the time and not have the necessity to switch between regulators like you would do on normal traditional normal traditional side mount. We have no need for that because the system is fed through the manifold to all of the hoses. We have removed the need for independent doubles diving because of that. We've also had a nice opportunity to keep our emergency procedures in place. And that's from as simple as an air share, like, hey, I'm out of gas, and there you go, there's a long hose, and I go to my necklace, and we're happy, to a complex situation in a cave where there's no visibility. We have a procedure for sharing gas there as well. If there's no visibility, we're on touch contact with each other. If the diver, one of the divers in that team, has a problem with their air source, like no gas available, we have a procedure that taps on the regulator, and that's then being taken out because it's impossible to donate to a diver you can't see because you cannot see in front of you. So imagine doing that in a system where you're on one regulator the one point of the time and on another regulator the other part of the time. When do you then share gas in that scenario? That becomes quite tricky. If you're on the short hose at the time of air sharing, it's kind of a problem. So another advantage, and that's generic, the blue ones are generic for side mount diving, basically regardless of what system you follow. It's very easy for traveling, and it's a very balanced system of diving. It's very nice. You don't have that heavy tanks on your back that keep wanting to roll you over. So it really feels nice to dive a side mount system. Now the disadvantages at first were the proprietary equipment was needed to be able to do this. It needed a special manifold, of course, and it needed a special plate to attach to the wing. So availability was a bit of an issue. In certain areas of the world, it's not so easy to buy equipment. And now, especially with the pandemic popping his head up, this became even a bigger problem. We had a small profile increase on the back of the diver. Now, some people take that as a big problem. I don't really think it's a big problem. I've been into very, very tiny places, as I can show you in a minute, so I don't think it's an issue. But still, it's something to take into consideration. And it was more expensive. It was an expensive piece of kit to build. Again, generic for all side mount system. It's more task loading on the surface. For those of you who have or are diving side mount, you can attest that it's a bit of a pain to dive from a boat and everything rocks and you have to attach all the hoses, you know. With our system, it's a little bit less of a pain because it's just basically one hose you connect into the quick connect and then everything works. But I've tried it in the Baltic on heavy waves and current on the surface, and in a normal traditional side mount system where you have to connect your dry suit hose and your inflator hose and all that sort of stuff. Hoses have to go into place. It's a bit of a faff. So boat diving is both good and bad, because a small dinghy is nice because you're not so top heavy with the big heavy tanks. But a bigger boat like a liveaboard, it looks a bit funny, right? You see the side mount divers clunk, 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 walking towards the deck, and it doesn't look cool. Let's be honest, you know. Air sharing procedures in traditional side mount is also a bit of an issue. Again, the thinking is that it won't never happen because I'm independent and I can solve my own problems. But you know, history has shown that there's many divers who came into problems and have hurt themselves with fatal outcomes sometimes with pony bottles that are completely full. And that just goes to show that not every scenario is capable of being solved just purely by adding more equipment. I'm almost going to say the less equipment, the better, because the faster choices you make. So, more advantages of side mount diving is obviously you can crawl into small spaces. This is a picture from our China expedition where we were in China in a very rural area. We were invited to go there to map unexplored caves. And yeah, as you can see, it's a tight spot, and we can't get there with back-mounted doubles. Plus, the logistics there, it was impossible to source twin sets. There were no twin sets in that area. We can get 80s from everywhere, but twin sets were impossible. So from that regard, it was super nice. The next is mixed team diving. Because the system is so consistent, you don't have to start explaining the whole thing to a buddy that doesn't know side mount diving, because it's exactly the same as back mount. Here you can see on a big wreck in the Baltic, a guy on doubles and me behind with a scooter on side mount. And like I said, with the tight spaces, this is a submarine at 70 meters, and the hatch is 60 centimeters in diameter. 60 centimeters, that's 2 feet, I think, in your measurements. I only do. I'm from Denmark, so what can I know? So here I go down with a single tank in front of me in a tiny little space to see if the bottom hatch is open. Very interesting dive. But it goes to show that there are advantages for side mount diving, and it's a tool for certain diving objects. So where are we now? We've alluded that, okay, the problems with availability and the fact that UTD scuba diving has split apart from the equipment leaves us with a little bit of a gap. We like to say that we're now completely equipment neutral, and that means that we are ended up here. I went to the drawing board and said, how can we create a system that still adheres to our core principles of a consistent way of training and a DIR compatible way? Now this might look a little bit confusing, but let me put it together with something that you're more familiar with, a set of doubles. So as you can see, this is the right post, the right regulator, right? And that feeds our long hose, and it feeds our BC, right? We have the cylinder and the manifold the double. And the left side feeds our necklace and our dry suit and has the SPG. Now look at here, we have 2 blocks. And now I'm gonna have to attach this back here. Let's do this again. And now you can see I'm wearing this system, which basically has a long hose that is donatable all the time to all my team, a necklace that's available to me, just like in a pair of doubles, just like here. We got a right and a left distribution block that distributes the hoses exactly like it would if it comes from the first stage. And we have 2 inputs, as we have here are their cylinders, but here are the quick connects, in this case QC6s, and they go in and distribute the hoses. So on the left side, the hose is going to the necklace, and the other side is going to the dry suit, over there. The right one is going to my long hose, and is going to the wing. Right there. And then there's one hose in the middle with a shut-off, a simple generic shut-off you can get over the shelf from almost every dive center. And that's basically our manifold. So now we ended up with a system that is completely generic. There's no special parts. It's all available by either Omni Swivel or any other manufacturer that creates these 4-port plugs and QC6s and hoses. It's all over the shelf. And it doesn't require any special side mount wing or harness. It can be adapted to any side mount wing you might already have, be that X-Deep or any other brand that you might have. So what we like about this new system is that it's even lighter than the other one. It's cheaper. And if you look at this one, it's now compatible with every side mount rig. It's made with over-the-counter parts. It's less expensive, like I said. It doesn't require any proprietary equipment anymore. And it's even a smaller profile. We also took all the hoses away, or all the connections away from behind our backs, putting everything in front of us. And many divers in the past have had questions about well, what if something happens with the manifold, the hose is on the back? Well, in reality, this is the same thing if you wear a pair of doubles on your back and you have the hoses from the doubles on the regulators, except it was on the manifold. Now, in our case, everything is now in front of the diver. So it's available for you to watch and see where potential problems are. Doesn't say that you can do a solo with it, because we don't believe in solo diving. But it just gives us more flexibility when it comes to not hindering our team. It's a talk for another show, I guess. Why do we have redundant equipment if we dive in a team? But if you want more information on that, I did a video on our YouTube channel talking about that, because it's a little bit of a different way of thinking about it. Why we have redundancy in technical diving more than we have in recreational diving. Why is it not just a bigger tank if you just need more gas and you have a team available? So it's an interesting video to watch. I also encourage you to listen to our podcast. We'll probably do a new podcast on side mount diving. We've done some in the past, and we've done some on the coaching program as well. So it's a nice listen to when you drive back to wherever you came from. Any questions on this? And this is a true statement. There's no such thing as a stupid question, so let them come. Yeah. Well, the price is whatever you can buy these parts for. So, I don't know. Go ask OmniSwivel, right? It's like in back mount diving now. You can buy a pair of Scuba Pro regulators, which are good high quality, but they're also expensive. You can get cheaper options out there. Are they just as good? I'll let you be the judge of that. You know? So that's the whole thing, is that we're now no longer reliant on a single manufacturer for the way we like to dive. Yeah. Oh yeah, good point. We talked with OmniSwivel, and they actually wanting to make a part number that include all the parts you need to set this up. And then talk to a UTD instructor for any kind of side mount training, and you know how to get it. Just talk to OmniSwivel, hey, the UTD side mount hose kit, and it includes hoses or just the metal parts, basically. Any other questions? Yeah, yes sir. Very good question. He asked if we're integrating side mount into our open waters. Simple question, yes we do. You can actually take the class, the open water class, in side mount if that's what you want. Because it's the same, basically. Especially, it's another advantage of this system, it allows you for single tank side mount diving. Because as soon as you plug one tank in the left side, it feeds everything. Which is nice. Jeff and I, we were in the Red Sea for a couple of years ago. We did a big, deep technical dive with 4 cylinders around us in scooters. And in the afternoon, we took 1 scooter, 1 cylinder, and went monkey bashing around the wreck at 6 meters of depth. All with the same, 6 kilos of, 12 pounds of diving equipment in our bag. So that was nice. So for traveling, for sure, it's fantastic. Any other questions? Must be some questions. Yeah.
Is that still needed? Yes or no?
No. The question was the manifold we had on the back before this one. If that was still needed? No. It's like this. The hoses that cross around my back is basically, if I can dissect it, I just have to let go of this one. So as you see, on this side, yeah, if you can give me a hand here.
I'll be Vanna.
Jeff, everybody, my lovely assistant. Give him a round of applause. We're in Vegas after all. Here, so the hoses just cross like they would in a pair of doubles, coming from a regulator or coming now from this port. So all the hoses that go behind, one is the inflator hose coming from the right side feeding the wing. The other one is the connecting the manifold hose. And the other one is the hose for the necklace coming from the left side turning into the necklace, this one.
Connector has to shut off.
And the isolatable portion comes from that shutoff. So if, like say, you're diving in the cold waters, you come and visit me in Denmark, and we go for a nice dive, and your necklace starts free flowing. You can turn off the left cylinder, and you're done. If it has a problem that it's not ice, but it's the situation that you need to isolate between left and right, you shut it off. And now you're basically the same situation if you were in a pair of doubles and you isolate it between the left and right tank. Now the big problem with back-mounted doubles is now you lost that tank completely, even though the tank might not fail or might not have a problem. In this case, we could potentially unplug that cylinder and use it on the other side and still utilize the gas that's in there.
If the regulator didn't fail.
If it's not a first stage problem, exactly.
Do you have an example of how the quick attach at the booth attaches to the first stage?
No, we don't. It's basically, well, the way QC6 work, it's a male connector, and you push it in, and if you keep pushing, it just connects itself. And that's attached to the first stage, yeah, exactly. It's a normal, like a low pressure hose coming from the first stage with the male part of that one. Yeah. So
All that's on the first stage except for an overpressure valve. That's very cool.
yeah. So your second stage or your first stage on your tank looks like a stage setup with a little SPG and the low pressure hose, but instead of a second stage on the hose, there's the male part of the QC6. Yeah.
And then because the male part of the QC6 has a schrader that sticks out, because the male part of the QC6 has a schrader that sticks out, you can just depressurize by hitting that plug. Just that you can take the regulator off.
And the QC6 is not some. It's like this is from Svedgelog. This is a Swedish company, and these are solid. They've been using in the rebreather world, the PSCR world, since '91. So they're proven to have a good amount of flow and a good amount of reliability when it comes to that. Yeah.
So it is more moving parts than the issue of added failure points.
Yeah, for sure. Very good question. I'm glad you asked it, and I'm amazed no one else asked it. But yes, we do add more failure points. Exactly. But that cost is weighed, in our opinion, by the benefit of always being able to donate to long hose, being able to dive single tank side mount, being able to unplug gases, and imagine plug in Diigo gases, because usually it's back mount divers that come with that like skeptical question, which I think is good and I applaud it. But think about it, in a pair of doubles, there is, and I kind of anticipated this question, so I kind of took the liberty of opening up one of our slides from our training materials. These are the failures we teach in technical diving on doubles. So we have 9 potential failures on a twin set, either being fixable or non-fixable, or manifold related or tank related. There is one point of manifolded doubles that is a single point failure that if you destroy that, you'll lose all of your gas. And that's the manifold. If you hit this and one of these O-rings goes and you've bended that tiny little brass bolt that enables you to turn the valve, which is very easy to do, you've lost all your gas. There's no way for you to isolate and save that gas. And you end up in an air sharing scenario. Now, similar thing can be said for side mount, except we can save the gas by unplugging that cylinder. Taking that one step further, if you do a long decompression dive on a pair of doubles, you're spending, let's say, 20 minutes at 200 feet, 60 meters. Yeah, that'll give you a decompression obligation of at least 40 minutes. So that means of a 60-minute dive, you're spending 20 minutes on a complete, redundant, you know, wow, best system in the world for 20 minutes. The rest of the dive, in blue water, you're on a single tank with probably a crappy second stage and a crappy first stage for 40 minutes of that dive. Where's the redundancy there? Talk about single point failure. You know, if you lose that one, you're in lost Diigo procedures and sharing Diigo gases, and that's much more of a faff, to be honest, than dealing with a manifold or that system. The beauty of that system is we can unplug our left cylinder from the system, dive the right one, make a gas switch, and plug our Diigo gas into the system. Now we turn off the right tank, and we're breathing Diigo gas on our main system. So we'll have Diigo gas available for donation. We have Diigo gas available for the necklace. Everything stays the same. So that now means that during the whole 60 minutes of that dive, you are diving a redundant system, which in my mind adds for some more safety than diving 40 minutes on a single tank and 20 minutes on a twin tank.
And you're eliminating having to purchase a third, first, and second stage.
Yeah, exactly. You eliminate a third first stage you need, but you have 2 second stages. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yes, sir. Sorry?
What length of hose are you running from the first stage to the quick connector?
The question was, what length of hose do we use from the first stage to the connector? It's about 2 feet, about 60 centimeters, because that's all you need. It comes from the tank, just goes straight down and plugs in right underneath your shoulder. So we found that if you use an 80 cubic feet cylinder and use a 60 centimeter or 2 feet, right, 2 feet hose, it won't fall in the sand when you disconnect it.
So you should probably talk about why we dive aluminum 80s, because the tanks are not part of the weighting system.
That's another benefit. The reason we dive our side mount system with aluminum cylinders is because, or aluminum cylinders, sorry, is because of the fact that they're neutrally buoyant in the water, give or take. If you dive steel cylinders, which is very big in Europe for side mount diving, personally I think you kind of lose a lot of the benefits when it comes to side mount, because you're going to add these heavy tanks that you now need to leave in place, because as soon as you take this away, you're going to be on your nose underwater. And the reason for the aluminum cylinders is that it doesn't affect our weighting system. So for the first time ever, basically, we're able to be truly balanced as a diver. And I don't know if you heard the presentation before of the guys that were pitching the new system they invented without weights and without a BC. It's because they didn't have a suit, right? Because why do we need weights when we go diving? Like lead weights. No, it's not to go down. Exactly, very good, sir. It's to compensate for the added buoyancy of our exposure suit. Because if all of us here just take on our bathing shorts, jump in the water and exhale, we'll sink. We as humans are, give or take, neutrally buoyant. What keeps us up is the air in our lungs. Now, if we start adding suits to give us some warmth, that will make us bigger. The warmth comes from the air. Even in a wetsuit, it's the tiny air bubbles in the material that keeps the water that your body warms up between you and the wetsuit warm. So that air gives us buoyancy. Now, a lot of that buoyancy is being compensated by the weight of your equipment. Right? The first stages, the tanks, if they're steel, or the back plate, or whatever, everything adds up. If you then still need a bit of extra weight, that comes in the form of lead. So we need lead weights to offset the positive buoyancy. Now, then we add gas in our tanks, and we become heavy. Single tank gives us 6 pounds of gas weight. That gas weight goes in the tank, goes in the BC. So in the beginning of the dive, the BC is filled with the weight of the gas. Now, if we look at the side mount system and we dive aluminum cylinders, which are kind of neutral in the water, they're a tiny little bit positive when they're empty and a tiny little bit negative when they're full, it gives us a greater sense of balance in the water because we don't have the heavy tanks to deal with. There's a smaller shift in buoyancy when it comes to that. Anything else?
Let's plug tomorrow.
Well, if you guys are here on the show tomorrow again, Jeff and I will have this talk and we'll do an obscure questions live podcast. It's a very popular topic on our podcast where we talk about all kinds of different obscure questions. Some of them are not so obscure and just in general, but it's a nice little talk where Jeff and I get to talk about the questions you guys might have. So,
1 o'clock tomorrow.
yeah, 1 o'clock here.
And then if you want to listen to some of the back ones, just grab the podcast. We've done, I don't know, 7 or 8 of these.
Yeah.
And tomorrow we're just doing live. It should be really fun. So bring your crazy stump the chump questions and see if you can beat us.
I'll give you your first one.
Okay, we'll take it.
Us girls, these are buoyant.
I'm sorry?
Us females, these are buoyant.
They are. They are, yes.
You don't have
No. Women are an exception to the rule. Sometimes a woman needs maybe a pound or two to offset for that wonderful buoyancy you guys have. And let me tell you, if the ones are even not that Mother Nature gave you, they're even more buoyant. Just so if you get those or plan to get those, don't get a wetsuit with a zipper in the front. Go for the one in the back because it'll be a problem. Pro tip there. Yeah.
So that's kind of what our obscure questions are like.
Usually we go out on tangents like that. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, if there's no more questions, thank you very much for your attention. If you do have any questions, we're right behind this black tarp over here, so come and see us. Otherwise, have a great show and stay safe in Vegas.